Stuart here. Welcome to Module 2, which is Qualities of Great Leaders and Building Personal Credibility. So Module 1, we talked about connection and extension. This is very much more about individual qualities of leadership that will allow you to become successful as a leader and to engage the people that follow you. So as you can see from the photo, I've picked two fantastic rugby coaches who are also fantastic leaders. Wayne Smith to the right and Steve Hansen, the New Zealand head coach. Both great leaders, and I've got a lot of the qualities that I'm going to share with you now in the presentation, which is 19 qualities of great leaders, not 20, 19. Anyway, number one, they are authentic. I think the thing I've learned about leadership is that you can only be who you are. So don't try and be someone that you're not. Don't try and follow someone else's leadership style. I think authenticity is absolutely critical in great leaders. And just be true to yourself. Don't try and be swayed to follow other people's leads. Use your own personality and your own leadership style. Number two, I think we've talked about this in the previous module about communication skills. To be a great leader, you have to be a great communicator. So you cannot stand in front of people and inspire people and get them to follow your direction without being a good communicator. And it's a skill that can be learnt, obviously, with practice. So let's get practicing. Alongside communication skills comes alignment. And if you can align people to a cause and give them a reason why that they all want to work hard for you or your company or your organisation or your team, it's absolutely critical for top-level leadership. Something perhaps I didn't really appreciate when I first started out in charge of teams was people actually want you to have a point of view, and sometimes, even if they don't disagree, they'll admire you for it. If they don't agree, they'll admire you for it. So, if you took the extreme of Donald Trump as an example, there's no doubt he has a point of view, and as a consequence, you can see that people follow him. Now, that's an extreme example, but for me, a manager is someone who navigates his way around a point of view. A leader is someone who has a point of view and can make it clearly and get people to follow their point of view. And fairly obviously, number 5 is great leaders are good with people. So they're a people person. And there is no ABC of importance for them. They will spend time and connect with everyone and anyone. 6 is a very important one, I think. Situational sensing. They can sense mood in the camp. So in a rugby context, this is in the changing room before the game. You can feel if the players are in the right place mentally to go and deliver a performance, or if they're not, and then you can adapt your behaviours accordingly to try and get them to that place. And the great leaders can somehow sense this and understand what's going on before they've been told, if that makes sense. They build trust, and by giving trust first, you will get trust back. And the great leaders usually give trust first, and in return, they become trusted because of the consistency of their actions, particularly under the highly pressurised and stressful moments that occur in all leadership lives. They focus on key relationships, so there's a lot of relationships to manage in any walk of life, and particularly the great leaders who've got a huge number to manage. They will prioritise their time on the key relationships. That's not to say they avoid the others, but the key relationships are the one that really matter. I don't think you need to be an A-star at university or degree level or A levels, but you need to have some intellect, and obviously, clearly, being a leader is the ability to think strategically as well as emotionally. So strategic thinking and the ability to think in an intellectual way is important. And with that, they understand the organisational context, so they can come into an organisation and get an understanding of the landscape before they make any strong leadership decisions. A lot of leaders get promoted from within, so obviously the understanding of organisational context is easier. But the great leaders understand the politics and understand the background that goes on in the organisation, and will make good decisions thereafter. Domain excellence. So in my world, obviously, this would be knowledge of rugby. Is it possible for a rugby coach or a soccer coach or a cycling coach or a swimming coach to go into a different sport? I think it is. Clearly, you've got to surround yourself with other people who have domain excellence. But obviously, it's a huge, huge advantage to know the area and be an expert in the area that you're leading in. Obviously, rugby would be my sport. The Steve Hansen, Wayne Smith model on the front, they certainly have domain excellence. So it's about performance, but it's also about results. It's not just performance and it's not just results. It's performance and results. Because everyone knows that if you don't get the performance right long term, you won't get the results. And vice versa, if all you do is strive for the result without focusing on the performance, you might get short-term wins, but you probably won't get long-term success. Excuse me. They get the balance right on social distance. So this is the really difficult one I found as a leader, to be close enough to your players to get them to want to play for you, but be far enough away that you can make the difficult decision. And sometimes as a leader, we can distance ourselves from the people we lead, and we're too far away, and they can't connect with us. Equally, if there's a staff night out, there's probably a point when the leader needs to go and let the staff enjoy themselves without you being around. So, not trying to be one of the lads, but equally not being so distant that they don't want to work for you. I think this is a really tricky one, but ultimately it will define you as a leader. You have to have the moral courage to do the right thing, and it depends on where your values are and what you believe in. But whatever you do believe in, when there is a decision that needs to be made, and there's a 50-50 decision, go with the one that your gut tells you and you know is the right thing to do morally, because people will respect you for it. They might not agree with it, but ultimately they'll respect you and your integrity for it. They have great body language, so people want to see the leader have confidence and a manner that inspires them to be followed. So body language is critical. People are watching you every moment of every day as a leader, and if you're negative or you're giving the wrong messages through your body language, then ultimately it will affect your leadership credibility. There are obviously big moments that come to leaders, big speeches, big talks, and big conversations, and the great leaders will prepare for those moments. The great leaders would never be complacent, and never assume that they can just turn up and deliver something without preparation. And sometimes you get moments that you can't prepare for, leadership gold moments I would call them, and that's where your gut instinct and your moral courage has to drive your decision making in the heat of the battle, because often you only get sometimes a very short space of time to make a decision about how to react to a certain situation, and that's what defines the good from the great. It's tough being a leader. You need emotional energy, physical energy, drive, resilience, and persistence. And you'll get criticism. You can't possibly be liked by everyone. Not everyone's going to agree with your decisions. But ultimately, in the long term, people will respect you as a leader if you make more good decisions than bad, fairly obviously. You've got to be an optimist, pint glass half full. You've got to be ambitious, and obviously at some point you've got to make some calls where you won't know the outcome. A safety first leader will only get you so far. And finally, I think we mentioned this in the previous module about connection and extension. They make performance meaningful. So they make the reason why we're all going to work hard for this organisation important, and they give a meaning to work and to get people to follow you. you find different ways, different strategies to make it meaningful for the people that you lead. So there's 19 there, a lot in it. There's a lot in that. And to be honest, we could debate for hours each one of those 19. But anyway, it was just a starter for 10, and then there's other thoughts to follow.